G'day guys, I'm going to be talking to Marvin Jeffcoat. He's running as a Republican in the 26th Council District, which covers Sunnyside, Long Island City and Woodside, and a small section of Astoria. Hey Marvin, thanks very much for joining me today.
Kristen, how you doing? Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, good stuff. So Marvin, just tell us about yourself, why you're running, and for people that don't know you, what's your history in terms of the area?
Well, I'm running for three basic reasons. First, I want to give my kids a piece of the American dream that my parents left for me. And, I think we do that by returning the city back to a rule of law that works for everyone. The sanctuary policy that they have going on, it benefits special interest groups and criminals, but it doesn't benefit the taxpayers. So I want to get us back to a baseline of law that we all adhere to. Second reason I'm running is because I'm tired of being told what to do by people who have no frame of reference about how life works. We've indulged a social experiment that's left us less educated, less wealthy, and very much less safe. We need to review all policies and eliminate those that harm us. Like the ones that released hardened criminals right before the riots started. That's kind of a suspicious time frame for me. Like the ones that created bike lanes on an 8-lane highway in Queens Boulevard, and the ones that designated criminal offenses as civil penalties. None of that stuff is healthy. Finally, I'm running because we deserve better. It's time for unity and leadership as opposed to the divisive rhetoric that Van Bramer and the Democratic machine use to inspire hate and vitriol, such as what we've seen in downtown Brooklyn, downtown Manhattan, and Portland with this Chaz zone. They blame President Trump, the NRA, and normal Americans like me for crimes committed with illegally acquired firearms. I submit it's the divisive rhetoric from politicians like Van Bramer and the Democratic machine which are responsible for the political violence we're experiencing. So, we need a leader who will represent us all as opposed to dividing us with hateful speech like, I'm ready to fight. I mean, when's the last time he's actually been in a fight, But when I'm elected, I'll provide the leadership just like I did when I was in the Army in actual combat. I've been in actual fights. So
now, Marvin, you're running as a Republican or an independent?
Absolutely. Last time I ran as a Republican with the Republican and Conservative Party endorsement, and I hope to do the same thing again. I'm a lifelong Republican. I was born in Queens General Hospital a very long time ago. As you know, I spent 22 years in the Army, and I retired to Woodside in 2004. My youngest son, he's lived here all his life. He was, he's lived in this house the whole time. So that's my background. I'm a soldier. I started out in the Army as a military policeman. I became an infantryman, airborne ranger, and I'm a problem solver. I'm used to fixing things, providing leadership.
Oh, that's great. Now, on a local level too, I know you were involved with Community Board 2 for many years. What else are you doing on a local level in more recent times?
Correct. I left the Community Board to focus on veteran service issues and to remain the Cup Master for PAC 390, which I still am, which was hurt because of the pandemic. I mean, we've lost, the boys have lost interest, I guess. But, that was one of the things I did. But, I still help folks behind the scenes. But I've served as district commander for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I've served on their National Legislative Committee to do things for veterans. I served as the state commander for the Catholic War Veterans, and I'm currently on the Catholic War Veterans National Board of Directors. My primary focus is with the kids in Cub Scouting and veteran service issues, but I still help out people in the neighborhood. They come and ask me things behind the scenes. How do we do this? How do we do that? And I give them what little bit of advice I can. I help out where I can. I'm always accessible. People see me on the street. They have an issue. They let me know. I'm active in my parish in St. Teresa's. But, it's not, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, there's a laundry list, this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
People need me. I'm there. They ask, and I'm going to help out.
Right. Now, you've been a pretty tough critic of Van Bramer over the years. Why is that?
Well, because he's failed us. I mean, if you look at what he did, I warned 4 years ago about bashing the police. I mean, they pretty much neutered the police. You have law enforcement officers, and like I said, I was a military policeman. They put their life on the line every day. And what they did was fundamentally a dereliction of duty. It was reckless and shameful. But 4 years, and it's all, all this stuff to me looks kind of coordinated. 4 years ago, he was attacking the police, leading marches across the bridge, saying how bad they are. And what that led up to is police officers having their authority taken away and being assaulted. I mean, run over with cars, beaten and battered. You name an employee that's going to take that, But they actually, the police have done a very good job. And New York City has the best police department in the world by far. I'm telling you, it's a majority minority police department. These guys are out there. I'd like to see more foot patrols, by the way, but they're out there every day protecting us. All right. And to use that kind of rhetoric is disgusting. And it's led to, we've had property destroyed. It's led to violent crime. It's led to a higher murder rate across the city. Van Brander and his cronies, they started all that with their walk across the bridge. And they use incidents and blow them out of proportion to demonize the police. The police are there to help, by and large. You've got less than 1% in this country, about the same rate of mortality as the Wuhan flu, the coronavirus. It's got a less than 1% mortality rate, but they got everything shut down because of it. But less than 1% of officers are bad apples. And NYPD has an internal affairs bureau, and they're brother cops. Brother cops don't like that because it makes them all look bad and it makes the job harder.
Now, Marvin, you're an African American. A lot of these people say that they're advocating on behalf of African Americans. What do you make of that?
I'm an American,
yeah,
first and foremost. All right, I'm an American of African and European descent. Right. It starts from the southern tip of Italy all the way up to Wales and Scotland. Strongly Portuguese and Spanish, by the way. So for those that criticize me and call me racist when I say we need to enforce our immigration law, I got Spanish blood running through me too. But I'm an American, all right? They don't represent anybody. They represent the global socialists who want to take over our country.
Real estate, land use, etc. Big issues in this subject, and you well know. Amazon was one thing a couple of years ago that people debated quite fiercely. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I favored the Amazon deal, but not the way it was. Leave it to a Democrat to give away the store and fleece the taxpayer. I would have negotiated a better deal. For example, I would have asked for a higher percentage of district residents like Queensbridge and Ravenswood, Woodside, and the rest of our neighborhood, Long Island City, Sunnyside. Hire them, hire folks locally. All right, I would have got that right. Giving away or charging a nominal fee for blighted property that's just been sitting there with rats and all kinds of other things running through it was, it's not a bad idea to sell it to a developer at a nominal fee because it's already blighted. But having the taxpayers finance this development, that wasn't good. What I would have done to sweeten the pot is I would have started maybe with a 5% corporate tax rate, and knowing I have a basement of 1%, I would have negotiated with them so that they would come on board, but I would lower the corporate tax rate. The current corporate tax rate, by the way, is about 8.5% after net income, almost 10% of a corporation's earnings, money that they made, the government's going to take. So I would have made that somewhere around between 5 and 1%, probably closer to 1% to attract them to come in. But we can't do that now because of the policies of AOC. John Cummings is going to be a good replacement for her. But because Cuomo and de Blasio chased away Amazon, we lost an opportunity for jobs. But guess what? They wouldn't have mattered because they already had that pandemic plan. All right, so they shut down all the business. And I'm surprised the Chamber of Commerce hasn't defended the restaurants, the bars, and all the other establishments that have been closed down. These people are all about killing the economy, killing jobs. So
I don't know about the corporate tax rate, but Cuomo and de Blasio were advocating for this. I think the people that were opposed to it were, yes, AOC and Mike.
Correct, but they weren't advocating on behalf of our best interests.
Right. Well, what were they advocating on behalf, do you think?
Their own interests. I'm sure that if not them, their cronies were going to get kickbacks. There were going to be variances. Like, it's that whole myth. Like, these global free trade agreements, there's nothing free in this life. They're not free trade agreements. What they do is they protect transnational corporations. Now, on the downside, Amazon, after this pandemic is over and all these local businesses go out, Amazon is more than happy to fill the void from afar, consolidating their market share and strength. But what they do is, they come up with these trade deals and they have carve-outs for their buddies. So people that were friendly, and I don't know why Parikh Bara, he stopped the investigation into the funding of de Blasio. Cuomo stopped, was it the Westmoreland Committee or what? I forget the name of the committee, but they stopped these investigations into how these people do business. But they weren't advocating on behalf of me and you and the people that live and want to work in the district.
What do you think should go on that land where Amazon was going to go? I mean, they put forward these proposals recently, and they've haven't received the greatest of response.
Well, probably because people are afraid of what happened to downtown Brooklyn and Midtown Manhattan. We need manufacturing in New York, all right? That's what made New York great, and that's what's going to see us through the destruction that was wrought on us by de Blasio and the Democratic machine. So I'd like to see some type of manufacturing go there. Lower the corporate tax rate, make it, you got to, the whole thing is, and we're going to probably get to this later on, but my top priority is going to be public safety, right? I mean, you got to assure people that if they come back into New York, their property is going to be protected. But once you do that, you got to make it attractive for manufacturing to come back, so local people get jobs out of this. So I'd like to see something that produces.
I mean, a big component of the plan down there is it's half commercial and half residential. Like I think 5,000-6,000 apartment units. So what were your thoughts on that?
Are you talking about Ann Arbor, or are you talking about
Annabelle Basin? Yeah, down there.
Well, that seems like another variance that will further erode Long Island City skyline and displace elderly folks who are on a fixed income.
Mm-hmm.
We had you got commercial space, but commercial space. What does that mean? Commercial space alone is not going to generate the revenue we need. The illusion of Madison and Fifth Avenues is over thanks to de Blasio's riots. I mean, what are you selling if you don't make anything, right? If you don't manufacture in New York, what are you selling? So I would prefer to see space that's already zoned for commercial remain commercial and attract business. As wealthy people leave and abandon New York City, more of these lofts and lots that they developed are going to be available. It's already zoned commercial, so why not make it available to private development, right? I've never been a big fan of public-private partnerships because the taxpayers usually get stuck as a surety for the developers who finance the Democratic machine, by the way. Again, it's a full circle thing there. But, if the Department of City Planning has determined that Department of Education and the Department of DEC, Department of Environment, if that property is deemed to be excess, they should sell it to the developer. I think it's Brashatskia or something like that at a market rate and let them develop it. I don't think the message.
There are some developers down there that own it and they've put forward those plans. But let's move on. A big issue. You're running largely on law and order. That's what it sounds like, correct? Public law and order.
You have to get back to baseline.
Yeah. So a big component, better than anyone, the cops. Everyone's given them, talking about reducing their budget. It was reduced somewhat. How much? Was it $1 billion? Was it less than? That's debatable. But what are your thoughts on that movement to defund the cops?
It was reckless dereliction of duty, placing life, liberty, and property at risk, big time. New York City is one of several sanctuary jurisdictions across the nation that's intentionally bankrupted itself through mandatory race, justice, and gender identity training for civil servants, right? And defunding police is an attempt to cover that up and try to recoup some of those funds. And they've used this race, justice, and gender identity thing to further divide people. It's an indoctrination that socialists have used going back to 1919. And it's come through fruition again in one of those liberal policies that we indulge, and it's harmful, it's hurtful. Anyone who's lost due to the riots should sue the executive and legislative politicians for acting with malice outside the scope of their duty and exceeding their authority. I mean, what you have, in essence, with the lockdown is a Fifth Amendment takers clause issue, where they've taken property or made it worthless without reimbursing the proprietor for anything. But also, they put us all in peril, all while, they set all this up over years. These are global socialists at work, and they've done this incrementally, generationally. They started out with New York Safe, so a lot of people don't realize that. It's
You're still making it sound like it's one big conspiracy, Marvin, and
well, I mean, it is. It's their policy, but it's not. It's not a private conspiracy. They share their thoughts with you. Socialists actually tell you who they are, what they want. Going back to New York Safe, it's anything but. They curtail, they infringe on your Second Right Amendment. Citizens are ill-educated. They don't realize that the best a police department can do is order maintenance. Law enforcement's a misnomer, all right? Because they're vastly outnumbered on any given day. But they take away your right to protect yourself. You have a two-way right for a reason, all right? But you have to lay a foundation of groundwork. And part of that foundation of groundwork was New York Safe, which basically bans most firearms, all right? They did that so that they could make you harmless, make you helpless, and make you dependent on the government. I mean, look, what has New York Safe done for anybody? It's made us less safe. So during these riots, people are afraid, they're frightened, they're staying in their homes. But even if they, it's very difficult to even get a premise permit. But, you should enjoy, a law-abiding citizen is not going to hurt anybody. You should enjoy the right to carry concealed. If you have to walk to the grocery store, it's going to take the police forever to get there. After your head's busted wide open, your wallet's stolen, what are you going to do? So, yeah, order maintenance and law enforcement has to be my first priority, because after what they've done, we've got to get back. NYPD has lost valuable intelligence and the ability to maintain order because they disbanded the plainclothes unit. So they don't have any information coming in. And when you understand that, like I said, I was an MP, the first thing you're taught in MP school, and I'm sure it's not a lot of difference there. We had a different type of community in the Army, but the first thing you're taught is that a show of force is the first level of force. So a police presence is used. And once you take away that police presence, now you're going to have a violent confrontation to get things back to normal, back to baseline. Because the criminal is now used to operating with impunity. He's not going to just give that up. So we're going to have to go in there and confront these bad people with violence, because they're going to be violent, to reverse all the damage created by de Blasio and the city council.
Community boards. How do you think, you've been on it? Here's Community Board 2. How would you go about the appointments of people for that?
I would use the same process the city uses to hire employees based on recommendations from citizens. Yeah, I think the local council member should have some say in that. He's a citizen after all, right? But if you followed existing law, you can't go wrong. There should be an interview process, but it should come from people from the community. I was nominated by people from community that thought that I was a good guy, and I'm sure if they knew I was a Republican, I would have never got the nomination. I mean, after I stood up at one board meeting and said that I was a Republican, nice people that would give me rides home all of a sudden wouldn't look me in the eye without a frown. But I think it should come from the community, from the people.
Yeah, I mean, the way the appointments are done, you could basically stack the deck with people that had the same viewpoint as you, or whatever. How do you get around that you do get people that have opinions that are not necessarily in line with you?
Well, like I said, you do an interview process. They should come up with a criteria of what a board member is supposed to do. And the current board members is kind of hard now, because you're right. I forget the gentleman's name, but there's one guy that was on the board when I was there, and he kind of controlled the whole show. But you have to have a fair electoral process in all that we do. You have to have a deliberative process. So people should be able to go before the board and present their issue, their point of view, but also their skill. You should have somebody that can articulate the issues, that knows the issues, that has some experience in life. We should be looking. Not everybody has to be a professional. I mean, you have some people that are homemakers, but they should have input because they raise children in this neighborhood.
Mm.
So that kind of variety I'm open to, but it should be a deliberative process.
Okay. Marvin, what do you think about the poverty issues that we've got going on at the moment? Shelters are maxed out. We've got, big food lines going on right now. What would you do about that?
You're right, because I look at my pantry, St. Teresa, our food pantry, and now I see working age male adults, whereas it used to be usually older women or women with children.
Mm.
And the short answer is job creation. We have to bring manufacturing back to New York City, the way President Trump has brought it back to the United States. And like I said, the illusion of Fifth and Madison Avenues is not going to generate revenue. We need to lower the tax rates and attract people that build things to New York City. It's not really rocket science. You have space that's zoned commercially, and you have to use it for that. But you have to make, you got to let these people know their property's not going to be destroyed, their pockets are not going to be fleeced. Now, they should be good stewards of the environment. This is 2020, 2021 almost. So dumping green sludge into Newtown Creek, we know is wrong, right? I mean, you can do things the right way without over-regulation, but you have to remove the onerous regulation that kills business. And the best example I can give you, one of the local VFWs was almost taxed out of, or fined out of existence because they wanted to be more green, more economic, and they installed a hot water heater so they didn't have to run the boiler in the summer to wash their hands. They used a diameter of pipe that was 1 inch smaller. It was a little bit out of code, but it didn't affect the health, safety, and welfare. 10th Amendment, local government should stick to the 10th Amendment. If it doesn't affect the health, safety, and welfare, they should stay the hell out of it. But they didn't. And they levied heavy fines on this Veterans of Foreign Wars post. And now with the pandemic, they haven't been able to generate fundraising revenue, the fundraisers to generate revenue. And I don't know, they're teetering on the brink of going out of business, like Anton's and Ricardo's and a lot of other local landmarks. But when you do that to small business, they pack up those jobs and leave. So if you want to stop that stuff, you have to look at these onerous regulations. And what politicians fail to do is to go back and evaluate the regulations they create. I'm a humble man. I'm not afraid to say, hey, I got that one wrong, and go back and say, hey, this regulation is not doing what it's intended to do. So what I would do if elected is take a look at everything, but periodically review and eviscerate regulations that are harmful to the economy, the environment, and to the citizenry at large. If it's not doing what it's intended to do, or if it's not helping, we need to get rid of it. We're over-regulated. A law should be simple enough so that a high school grad could get out and start a business if he wants to. And in fact, if a law is over-complicated, it's unconstitutional and unlawful and should be void for vagueness. You have a lot of that in New York City. A high school grad should be able to start a business without a lot of red tape. But you can't even do a renovation to your house without a lawyer and an architect. I mean, that's ludicrous. It's crazy.
Okay. Just to finish up, there's a progressive wave going on throughout New York City. You've seen it, especially here in Western Queens. How are you gonna, win given that wave and that the whole movement, so to speak?
Well, I think a lot of them may have left New York, a lot of the wealthy ones anyways. And those that have been impacted by the progressive policies. Progressivism is socialism, which is essentially communism. They're all the same. It's about the control of the production and acquisition of wealth. It's a modern day form of slavery. Adolf Hitler learned what he learned about depopulation from the Jim Crow South. He created his Nuremberg laws from the Jim Crow laws. All right, he looked at that as an example. So going out and educating people politically, and I know people say, oh, that's not local, and he's going off as a crackpot with his conspiracy theory. No, facts matter, history matters. So I want to share that with people and actually explain to them what a progressive is. But
how do you get the message out, Marvin?
Well, I plan to do some fundraising. People can visit me on Twitter at Marvin R. Jeffcoat and click on and download the contribution form and send in money to our campaign. But, I plan to be out there after duty hours, of course. And I plan to go out on the street and talk to people. I'm going to hold fundraisers throughout the district. I'm starting early this time around. And I'm going to let people know what we're up against. We're up against a Democrat Party machine that has been taken over by the left-wing progressives. And I'm going to educate them. But I think enough of those people have been adversely impacted by the fruition of progressive policies based on what we saw in downtown Brooklyn and Manhattan, that they kind of know that it's not in their best interest. We have to educate people.
A lot of people will see the Republican box and go, no way. Why did you not choose to go as an independent, perhaps? What's that?
I'm not a phony. I'm not changing who I am. Mm-hmm. I'm a conservative Republican. Mm-hmm. I listened to people last time tell me, well, you don't want to say too loudly that you support Trump. That's bunk. Trump has done a great job as our president. Mm-hmm. I supported him from day one, and I still do. My policies haven't changed, all right? We know that I'm all about now priority number one, safe streets and transportation, education and job creation, and they all go hand in hand. But I'm not changing who I am. For me to say I'm going to become an independent or a Democrat would be disingenuous and phony. I'm not running from who I am. The Republican Party was founded because the Whigs were too cowardly to end slavery, and the Democrats have practiced some form of slavery throughout their existence since Andrew Jackson started. All right? So I'm telling you as a friend and as a man, Marvin Jeffco can't be a phony. So that's why I'm not going to run as anything else.
Fair enough.
I'll let people know who I am and what I stand for.
Yeah. And just to finish up, is there anything you're going to focus on in particular in terms of outside of law and order? Is there any sort of thing that you're going to make become your issue or your, something you want to focus on, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, law and order has to be my top priority because de Blasio and the Democrat machine have made the city very unsafe. But the other aspect is I support charter schools and vouchers because they create competition, which creates efficiency. We spend $22,000 per year per child to graduate illiterate students because teachers are required to evaluate instead of teach. Now, I love teachers, and they'll be the first to tell you they want to teach, but Common Core and the UFT won't let them. Common Core indoctrinates and separates children from the beliefs and core values of their parents. So I would eliminate that and get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic and civics, right? So that we graduate children that they can take these transition jobs and then they're going to be ready for the manufacturing jobs and the skilled trade jobs. And the union should love me for that because I'm creating more dues paying members for them. Mm-hmm. That's going to be, that's my big focus there. We have schools like Queensville Tech, wonderful school. I want to see, but I want to see kids go to school. I want to see children and parents have a choice. So poor kids from Ravenswood or Queensbridge should be able to have the same Catholic education if they choose that I can provide for my youngest son. We struggled with my oldest. He had to go to public schools. I wasn't satisfied with that all the way, but we did it. Mm-hmm. But I want to see everybody have school choice, and I want to do away with the indoctrination and basically the prejudice that is taught to our kids. It goes hand in hand. You have politicians like Van Bramer using inflammatory rhetoric like attack and fight when he's never probably been in a real fight. They use that language like, look at what your neighbors are doing, and if they're Trump supporters, let us know, report them, and cut them out of your life. Hitler, Stalin, and Mao did that. And they're starting to, that's the kind of indoctrination that Common Core teaches. We need to scrap that. Get back to the reading, writing, arithmetic, and civics that you and I were used to so that we can best position our youth to take the jobs that we're going to create. So making it safe for them to go to work, that's got to, I can't help but say that I got to make it safe for everybody. But after that, I want them to be well educated for the jobs that we create. And it all goes hand in hand. It's hard for me to tie it down to just one particular thing, but I'm big on education because my biological mother, rest in peace, she knew one thing. We grew up very poor because she decided to separate herself from the family out in Ozone Park in South Jamaica. And yeah, that was her thing.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is she always knew this. Without an education, you're nothing in America. And she was right. So I want our youth to have what I had. I want them to get an education and to be able to get good paying jobs so that they don't have to depend on the government and so that they don't have to stand in the line at St. Teresa's or anywhere else. Now, having said that, I would rather see a robust program at St. Teresa's and other houses of worship having food pantries than a generational welfare system where people see that as their vocation.
Okay. Listen, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.